Hello and welcome to the March Lymphedema Patient Roundtable, hosted by Lympha Press. My name is Alexa Ercolano. I'm the Marketing and Communications Associate here at Lympha Press, as well as a primary lymphedema patient myself. We are so pumped you're with us tonight, not only because we love you being here every second Tuesday of the month, but it is Lymphedema Awareness Month this month. So if you thought we talk about lymphedema a lot, buckle up because it is especially lymphedema topics tonight. So as we get started, if you could just chime in the chat, let us know where you're tuning in from and who's here. And I'm going to introduce our lovely panel of lymphedema ladies. So first we have Angela Jones, who's a lipolymphedema patient and health coach. Hey, Angela.
Hello.
We've got Catherine Rosenberg, pediatric cancer survivor, secondary lymphedema patient and advocate. And as I say every time, math teacher, so all your math questions go to her, although you might be on spring break, I guess, so maybe no math questions.
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. All right, math questions are fair game. Then if you have fibrosis questions, we have Karen Ashforth, who's a certified lymphedema therapist and fibrosis queen. Hey, Karen.
Hey.
And then we have Amanda Sobey, our lymphedema lady from up north. She is a certified lymphedema therapist. Oh, no, wrong note, sorry. Not a certified lymphedema therapist, but she is a certified personal trainer and nutritionist, lymphedema patient, and president and professional advisory chair of the Lymphedema Association of Manitoba. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
Hi, guys.
Hello. So we invite you to please pop your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to answer them during our Q&A portion about 30-45 minutes into the evening. Gentle reminder that we cannot give you personal medical advice. We will defer to our clinicians on the panel for any general medical discussion and share from our own experiences, of course. World Lymphedema Day, the whole month is our month, but the official day was March 6th. And what better way to celebrate than taking a look at your own lymphatics? That's exactly what our dear Catherine Rosenberg did on World Lymphedema Day. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So I have been struggling with my lymphedema in terms of different aspects. And I worked with my team, the medical team that I have, and we had decided that we were going to re-image my lymphatics. And I'm not talking central lymphatics this time. I'm talking lower extremity lymphatics. So it's a little different because I know I don't normally always talk about the lower extremity lymphatics. So I initially had a lymphoscintigraphy done in February, and the results weren't necessarily what we were expecting. So we decided that in Catherine true fashion, that I don't check off a box in anybody's medical professional world, that we're going to modify. So we did a modified lymphoscintigraphy where we actually did the injection. The injection site was not at the base of my toes for the second one. It was actually up in my calf. Unfortunately, they couldn't necessarily rule out what we were questioning in terms of if my lymphatic transplant in my calf was still viable. And we really couldn't definitively say that I have a blockage and where, because unfortunately, the second one kind of came back with the same results that the first one did, that the dye did not move after 4 hours. And that's with getting up and moving around. And they take your picture every, for the first hour, it's every 15 minutes. And then it's, I believe it's a half hour later, and then at 2 hours, and then at 4 hours. So, one thing I did learn is I don't follow your typical protocol, and that potentially I might have a blockage in my calf, but they can't distinctly tell for sure. So, but it correlates with what my lymphedema therapist had been seeing in terms of I had had my liposuction surgery in June, and the one part of my leg that really wasn't going down was my calf. And it's still not really going down. So we kind of know that there's a more of an issue there than there is in other parts of my body. The cool part, though, that I noticed was that So during a lymphoscintigraphy, you cannot have your compression on. So imagine a stage 4 lymphedema patient with lower extremity lymphedema with no compression on their leg for 4 hours. That could be kind of scary, right? Well, I will tell you, my thigh from my knee up to my groin did not swell the entire 4 hours. However, my calf did, and my calf swelled pretty quickly. But 24 hours later, it was back down to its normal size.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So there is parts that did work, but unfortunately, we can't distinctly say, we know that this is what the issue is and we can go fix it because we don't necessarily know exactly where it is.
Jeez. We were joking earlier that, Catherine is kind of a medical zebra in what she's gone through. And then we said, well, really, she's more of a unicorn because so much of what happens to her is just so unique. And I mean, your attitude and your ability to advocate for yourself through all of it is really admirable. And I think we all really learn from you with that. And it's unfortunate you have to go through all of that, but we learned so much from you, Catherine.
And I have to tell you, I learned so much from all of you. And especially Karen, I am so thankful for your suggestion for that.
Susan just said in the Q&A box, kudos, Catherine, for going through all those tests, and thank you for sharing your experiences. See, we all appreciate you, Catherine. And a lot of Lymphedema Awareness Month is obviously about lymphedema awareness, and we talk sometimes about how that can look like, or advocacy in general can look like, these big grand displays of lighting up landmarks blue and holding these lunch and learns at your office maybe about lymphedema or this or that. But sometimes just advocating for your own lymphedema is lymphedema awareness. It's a sign of advocacy or an active advocacy, or being out in public in your compression garment where people see you and see your lymphedema. That can be an act of awareness as well. So this month is really about all the different types of lymphedema awareness. And I'm going to pop a poll in the Zoom that's just asking what lymphedema awareness looks like to you. And we can go through everybody's answers at the end of the evening. But I wanted to ask the panel, what does lymphedema awareness mean to all of you? And kind of what does that look like in your lives, not just in March?
Ooh, let me go
I was going to say Amanda.
Oh, I was like, what's going on? It's a poll. All right.
Yeah, my poll.
Yeah, everybody at home, please feel free to chime in. So I am the president for the Lymphedema Association of Manitoba. So we had the privilege of running our annual symposium, which is really great to be able to get back into the community. And it's just so fun to be able to do that post-COVID, because obviously everything was pushed up online. And it was a really intimate educational forum where we were able to learn some tips. We had Kathleen Lifton on to teach us some stress reduction techniques for lymphedema. We had registered dietitian Jean Lamantia there. We had some gong bath meditations where we are really getting into more of the alternative ways of treatment using vibration and sound to help clear out the lymph and to move lymph. Lots of giveaways. We did outside of the symposium, we had 4 monuments across our province lit up as well too. So I guess my takeaway for World Lymphedema Day, I'm sorry. And we ended up meeting with like 14 members of caucus of explaining what lymphedema was. That was probably the biggest highlight of being able to sit there in a bunch of rooms, in a room with a bunch of people. And they learned awesome things about the lymphatics and lymphedema. And I just found that through my role in advocacy efforts, it's not about how much you do. I feel it's just more so about sharing stories. And honestly, Lympha Press has been a huge catalyst of my growth and my maturity. I always remember myself as a patient 20 years ago, wondering why the government wasn't doing this or why things weren't happening. And it spearheaded my decision to take part. And I feel for anybody at home, no matter how big or how small, like you said, advocacy could be just getting a brand new set of compression garments or going and seeing a certified lymphedema therapist, or it could be wearing your garments out in public and telling a person why you need to wear them, as scary as that may be. But the ability to share our stories and to be able to educate our community about what we struggle with on a daily basis is probably the most rewarding thing and cathartic thing for somebody like myself. Because I do kind of still, as much as I'm on social media, I do stay in the closet, or at least I did until I put it up on social media for you all guys to learn about it. So World Lymphedema Day for me is just to share your stories. It does seem scary at first, but it's amazing how many people are just actually really interested in learning because they have no idea, just like how you had no idea until it became a problem. And there's something joyous in that. And I think that over the years, our voices get stronger and our community gets bigger and we get a little bit more mightier. And especially with the Lymphedema Treatment Act that was passed this year, which was huge in the States. Hopefully it comes up to Canada. So yeah, World Lymphedema Day to me is just that day, or any day that you choose to share that story. Don't feel like you have to do it alone, and don't feel like you have to do it behind closed doors, because it's very important, not only for you, but for the next person behind you that you're breaking trail for.
I love the concept of it being about sharing stories, because that's obviously what we do here every month. And I think it is so impactful because you never know who's listening and who it may help or who they might pass along, that information to. So I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, Amanda. Thank you for sharing that. Susan in the chat says, lymphedema awareness should be taught in health classes in middle school. Puberty is confusing enough. It would be such a blessing for girls to know both lymphedema and lipedema. I agree. Middle school and medical school also would be a good start. Go ahead, Catherine.
So I just want to piggyback off of Susan's comment there. So as Alexa said, I am a teacher. I actually do educate my kids about lymphedema slightly, because they always question me in the fall and in the spring why I only have color on one leg. And they think that I am going to play a very specific sport of track. And clearly, I am not a track star. I have a hip replacement and a spinal fusion. I'm clearly not a track star. So then it kind of alludes to, well, what do you wear it for and why? And I actually am a special education teacher. So it kind of teaches the kids that just because you have a teacher doesn't mean that they don't have a physical disability, and it becomes a very big learning experience for them to understand that everybody is different, but there are similarities and differences between teachers and students.
Thanks, Catherine. Angela, our quiet lady, what is lymphedema awareness to you?
Well, the latter part of February, first part of March, I've had the opportunity to share this particular meeting with people. I have two therapists. I have a new lymphatic massage therapist, and I also have a therapist at one of the orthopedic centers here, and she's the one who wraps my legs. So I've had the opportunity to share this particular panel information on how to reach it, the time, and that was special to me because a lot of people don't realize we exist on here at least once a month. So
I love that. Thanks for sharing our group. That's awesome. The more the merrier is what we always say. How about you, Karen, as a therapist? What is lymphedema awareness to you?
I think that it's about giving everyone a voice. And so many of my patients, the first visit, they're either angry or scared or both. And so I feel like I've done a great job if patients can leave that first visit feeling hope and feel validated that what's going on for them is something that is shared by many, many other people, even though they might feel alone. So I think that I'm doing my job if I can have someone feel empowered to be able to manage their lymphedema. And I was seeing someone that in the chat talking about putting lymphedema in remission. And certainly I believe that is possible. I've seen that with many of my patients. It's not possible for everyone, but I think that at the very least, people can manage symptoms so that it doesn't become all there is, because there's so much more to life than this condition. This is just a little piece of who you are, and who you really are is so much bigger than that.
That's an important thing to remember, because I think some of us get caught up in that because taking care of our lymphedema is a full-time job most of the time, you know, and it's such a part, it feels such a part of our identity because it's such a part of our routine. And we have to always be thinking about it and what's going to affect it or trigger, you know, a flare up or this or that. But we have to be careful not to lose our sense of self in that. And taking care of our lymphedema is to enable us to live fully and do the things that we want to do in our lives. And we should feel empowered by managing our symptoms. So I think that's a really special thing, Karen, that you do as a therapist. And we so appreciate you for that. We've got Marianne in the chat saying, learning and more education, how to work with post-cancer radiation and axillary nodes removal, creating lymphedema of my arm and breast and shoulder. I am a nurse who ran a breast center and OR, yet lymphedema was rarely discussed. Wow. That's unfortunate. And I wish I could say that was surprising, but we hear that so much, and we're hoping that that changes the more that we all talk about it. So thank you, Marianne, for sharing that with us. We've got a lot of questions going on in the Q&A box, and I want to save them for our halfway point, which we're getting close to. But keep those coming. We've got a lot popping up in there. I wanted to mention too that I don't know how many people are aware, but the butterfly is a symbol for lymphedema. You may see it a lot in, you know, different stuff online regarding lymphedema or lymphedema awareness, and it's representative of resilience and trusting the process and change. And I just was curious if anybody wants to get poetic to talk about what the butterfly symbol means to you as someone in the lymphedema world. Does that resonate with you? Or if you could pick something else to symbolize your experience with lymphedema, what would that be? A little fun question. Get your creative juices flowing at 8:30 at night. And people in the chat too, feel free to chime in. Or we could move on to the Q&A questions.
Alexa, can I go back real quick to that one comment? Nancy had asked about if the procedure was successful or not. So I want to clarify that a lymphoscintigraphy is not a surgical procedure. It is an imaging study that can help surgeons to guide them on what you can do to help your lymphedema. So in order to do surgical interventions, they need to have imaging studies to view your lymphatic system, because you don't want a surgeon going in blindly to your lymphatic system, which is probably the most intricate and tiniest system of the body, but probably the second most important, even though it's the smallest. So I just wanted to clarify that lymphoscintigraphy was not a surgical procedure. I actually had a surgical procedure back in June that I had referred to in regards to the effects of the lymphoscintigraphy that it had after having that procedure. I hope that clarifies, you know, the difference between the imaging versus the surgical procedure aspect.
I appreciate that, because there's a lot of big terms and stuff when it comes to lymphoscintigraphy, lymphovenous anastomatosis, you know, all these big giant words. So it's good to get clarity on those. Valerie just said in the chat too, I like to explain to people what lymphedema is. Until I got it in both my legs, I had no idea you had a whole lymphedema system in your body. I watched, I think you meant lymphatic system, but yes. And she says, I watched a story on the news with Kathy Bates, and I learned that doctors only spend 15 minutes learning about it in medical school. I remember seeing, anastomatosis. Yes, thank you. Big words. Thanks, Samira. You proved my point. It gets me tongue-tied. But I remember seeing Kathy Bates on, I think it was Sunday morning program, and she was talking about her lymphedema, and it made me almost emotional to hear about it on TV, like that word even just spoken on TV. It was like so powerful watching that. So yeah, that was memorable for me too. Susan says, butterfly is renewal, hope, and freedom, all of which I aspire to in all aspects of my life. Thank you for answering my butterfly question, Susan.
Can I say something about the butterfly?
Yeah.
I homeschooled my daughter, and one of the things we did was go to a science museum to watch butterflies emerge. And it's very interesting because they really have to fight to come out of the chrysalis, and it's very hard. You don't dare help them, because if you help them, their wings won't grow strong enough for them to fly once they're emerged. And to me, the butterfly just means strength, because today is so different from what yesterday was. I thought I was doing pretty good with my lymphedema, and I have a tendency to just let it go like it's not a big deal. You know, it's a deal, but not a big deal. And last week I found a new therapist, went to a new therapist, and I realized, oh my God, your legs they're suffering. You need to do something. So the butterfly represents to me, today is different. You got to exercise some strength. You got to force your way through sometimes, because sometimes it's just not going to be easy.
That's really beautiful interpretation. And some people in the chat too are also chiming in about the butterfly. Sandy says, I think the butterfly is lymphatics in reverse. We have to squeeze in a cocoon of compression. And Samira says, growing from a caterpillar, 2 years of not knowing what's wrong, to a butterfly now that I have the tools and team to manage my lymphedema. Oh, that was Samantha. I'm sorry. Beautiful. And Shannon says, strength and new beginnings is what butterflies mean to me. And Fran says, butterfly is lightness of spirit in soaring. Beautiful. Go ahead, Amanda.
I've got a long-winded butterfly story if anybody wants to take up some minutes.
Let's hear it.
I think butterfly for me was always my spirit animal, because anytime that I basically gave up or couldn't go any further, it was the weirdest way how a butterfly, whether it be a real butterfly or like a pendant, or just, it always appeared somewhere as weird when I would just thought that there was no hope. So that was the very poetic version of just a butterfly always being there to just give me that compass to say I can do just one more day. The other thing too with the butterfly effect is that the premise, the chaos theory, is that one flap of a butterfly's wing can potentially create hurricanes miles and miles and miles away. And I just think if we all grouped together and if we all flapped once together, could you imagine the enormity that we could change the entire world to educate? And it's very interesting too that we're finding that the lymphatic system parallels all the other body systems, but yet we're the least recognized and the most unknown. And maybe the purpose for us here to join forces is to change the world, to say, you know what, we might be unique and individual in our own right, but we need to work together. Just like the human body has, the lymphatics has to work with the brain, and the lymphatics have to work with the eyes, and the lymphatics have to work with the heart and the kidneys and the intestines and everything. We complement every body system, but we're so under-recognized. It just makes me feel so teeny tiny and so small and so meek, but yet so big and so powerful. We just flap together and flock together and to be inclusive. So I just think we should all take a little page out of those butterfly books and just, you know, like I said, share your stories, flap together, find your flock, and just don't ever give up hope.
I love that. I love that. That's really awesome. And I like the idea of all of us sort of flapping together to make that change happen, because I think that's what's happening. The more we all talk about it and gather together and spread the word, change happens. I mean, look at the Lymphedema Treatment Act. You know, it took 10 years, just a little over, for that to finally happen, but it was a lot of coordinated flapping to get that, which is amazing. All right, everybody's been so patient in the Q&A box, and we've got a ton of questions. And I'm going to ask my panelists here if they see any in particular that they'd like to chime in on, because there's a lot. And I see, oh my goodness.
I'll take the too much compression.
Go for it. If you could read it out loud first, and then.
Okay, general question on compression garments. Do you feel there's such a thing as too much compression? If I'm wearing 20 to 30 tights and add 30 to 40 mmHg circates on top of them, I feel like the strongest would win. So the 20 to 30 tights become almost irrelevant with the 30, 40 on top of them. Or is it not good to add one on top of the other? I'm going to answer you live. Is it Illa? Is that how you say it? Illa or Isla? Probably Isla. Isla sounds cool. Anyways, yeah, if it's too tight, it's not right. If it's too loose, it's of no use. Yeah, that's mine. That's my thing. I think also too, I want to circle back to Catherine's conversation about lymphoscintigraphy. There's going to be areas of your body that are going to be more compromised than others. can I get a comment if it's an arm or a leg? I'm going to assume it's a leg just for the sake of conversation. And Karen always is going to probably chime in on this because she's such a wealth of knowledge. But my calf is completely non-functional. I do wear a 30 to 40 on my leg, but I do also end up putting a little bit more compression on my calf because there is absolutely nothing happening in my calf. If you have imaging to validate and verify your response, if you have doctor's approval and you have the support of your garment fitters and your certified lymphedema therapists, do not think that more compression is better. It will actually work in reverse. But if you do have certain areas or trouble spots that are a bit more compromised, I will never find a custom garment that will have more compression on the calf and lighter compression on the thigh, because that would just work in reverse, because you want to be able to drain the fluid in the pathways that they're flowing. So no, don't think that more compression is better. However, if you do know visibly with doctor support and documentation that there's areas that are more compromised, you might want to look at different modalities to assist the areas that do not function, but don't just think that you can squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. What your compression is trying to do is to find like a second skin. You want to be able to have just enough compression that when the muscle pumps, it's going to press up without caving or giving or heaving, but you don't want to squish it completely where it's going to completely prevent any sort of movement at all. We also don't want to collapse the vascular system. We don't want to collapse any other vessels that may be functioning as well too. So it's a very delicate light balance of finding right compression, which should be advised by your fitters, therapists, and doctors, as well as your intuition. But please, please, please do not crank your pumps up on high like I did. Do not try to go for the highest compression thinking that more pressure is better. Do seek advice, do seek guidance, and do also use the testing and the wisdom by other people around to help you find the perfect fit.
Well said. Karen, anything to add on that?
How did I do, Karen? What do you think? What?
She passed. She did great.
No, I think you said it all. You got it.
Oh, love that. To tack on to the compression question, MJ just asked in the chat, I'm having some issues getting garments covered. The doctors are ready to prescribe and Medicare/Medical Mutual will cover. However, the doctors don't necessarily know what to prescribe other than a few garments, Jobst and Juzo, but there's so much more out there. How do you recommend finding someone who has knowledge and experience enough to advise? Catherine, go ahead.
So recommendation would be, hopefully you're being seen by some sort of lymphatic therapist, because they can have the different various compression companies come in and show you the different products that are available, or they might have samples. Or you can reach out to a local DME and talk to their specialists that they have in the product areas to understand what is available. You can also look at the manufacturer's websites just to get a general idea to then be able to go back to a lymphedema therapist or somebody who you see for your lymphedema to ask them, well, this is what I found. What product type do you think is best for me? Do you think elastic garments, inelastic garments? What kind of nighttime garment should I use? Do I need a nighttime garment? Those are all important questions to know, because depending on how your body reacts to compression and the manual lymph drainage, that different people are going to utilize different products. So not everybody, none of us on this panel probably use the same exact things on a daily basis. We probably all use different brands, all use different things. I know in my room of lymphedema, because I have so much stuff, that I have products from every different compression company. I do not rely on one compression company. And that is important because you need to keep those options open. Just because your therapist prefers Jobst doesn't mean that that's going to work for you. Sometimes in the beginning, when you get your compression, it's going to be a trial and error. Yes, it's going to unfortunately be not necessarily cost effective in the beginning as you're trialing the different pieces but it's important to recognize that just because one compression garment doesn't work for you doesn't mean that another brand or another type of compression garment is not going to work.
It's the same with pneumatic compression too, and with any kind of treatment. I mean, I know obviously this is Lympha Press Roundtable, but we advocate above all else, what works for you is what you should be, getting and using. So like we say pretty much every month, we are all so different, as Catherine just said too, and our what works for some of us may not work for others. How our symptoms present may present differently than others. Catherine, I see you about to raise your hand again. Go ahead.
Yeah, MJ just asked another question that I can totally answer.
Sure.
Which is, how do you get options you like covered? Do you need to tell the doctors what you want to try? So I would first reach out to your lymphedema therapist, talk to them and see what they recommend, because they technically are the trained experts in understanding about compression types, but they may not pick the specific brand. So you really need to try, I would say, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I would say when you're trying a new compression garment out, you need to definitely try it for a minimum of 2 weeks, but more so like a month consistently, so that this way you can see, is it maintaining, and make sure you're still actively trying to, even if it's just once a week, seeing your lymphedema therapist so they can measure to make sure it's maintaining and holding you the way it should. And if it's not, then they can work with you to find either a different compression level, different type of compression. If you are doing custom compression, the brand doesn't matter typically on what is covered. It's based on a code that the insurance bills. So there's a code for daytime compression, and there's a code for Velcro adjustable or nighttime compression. Those three things, the Velcro adjustable and nighttime are actually underneath one specific code, and the daytime flat knit garments are underneath a separate code. And then the over-the-counter compression garments can be covered by your insurance depending on your plan, and they're a completely separate code. So you really need to call your insurance company, find out what's covered, what's not covered, and go from there.
And I'm curious about, because like in Canada, because I feel MJ, he said something about like it's only 2 brands that they recommend. I would say, ooh, that would be like a thumbs down kind of a statement. But up here in Canada, it's based on the compression level. So if you're a 30 to 40, that's what you ask for. And if I'm assuming your fitter is probably processing your insurance, I would probably recommend to go to a different medical supply store or a different fitter. Because if they're only saying that those 2 are covered, that's probably specific to the fitter, that's the easiest pathway for the fitter to send it through. So I would say if you're wanting a different brand, obviously, yeah, go somewhere else, try a second option. Because up here in Canada, they don't care if it's a Juzo, a Medi, a Jobst, a Sigvaris, whatever it is. They just care that you're getting that right compression class that's on the prescription. I don't know if that helps, but I hope it does.
And it might also be that DME only has accounts to be able to order from those 2 compression garment companies. So sometimes you do have to do a little homework on who are your covered DMEs and what brands can you order from those DMEs that is covered in network or even out of network from your insurance company.
And a lot of so down in the States, like a lot of my clients in the States, I will refer them to ordering compression online. Now, this is risky in a sense, but they do offer live fittings. So depending on if you live in rural towns, if you choose to go, and because MJ, you've been here a lot, which we love, it's probably not your first time ordering compression, but it might be better to just jump whomever you're going and getting fitted with, go to an online compression store to at least try a couple different on for size. They do online fittings. If you're a custom fit, that's a whole different level of expertise that is required, but there's different hacks that you can access, and either you can send me a DM and I can help point your direction, or Karen's fearlessly typing. I'm sure she's got a beautiful answer that she's going to put in the chat. But yeah, this is a very loaded conversation. There's lots of ways. If your therapist, your fitter is only saying they only deal with 2, I think Catherine has hit the nail on the head. It's because those fitters only have 2 accounts with those insurance companies. So you want to find someone who's a bit more diverse so you can get the care that you need.
And what I would also make sure, what my suggestion, if you're looking for a new type of garment company to DME to use, try to find one that's a nationwide garment company instead of a private garment company, because you're more apt to find that they have accounts with 90% of the compression garment companies, rather than it being a small mom and pop compression store that you can order from that may only have 1 or 2.
We're going to run out of time, you guys. We always do.
DME is a durable medical equipment provider. So, and that's what compression garments are covered underneath.
Yeah, this we could have a whole hour spent on just
8
talking
hours.
about this.
We could have a lymphedema month just on compression, I think.
I know.
Alexa, can I comment on Samira's question about 450 versus 550? So I've actually worn both. They're made by the same company. The fabric is different. One is, I will say, more cozier, but it doesn't have the strong wall stability. So if you are a late stage lymphedema patient, that is, you may kind of swell through the Medi Cozy or the 450. They're both the same. The Medi 450 has vertical stretch. So it makes it a little bit easier to put on. So if you have, let's say you have like arthritis in your fingers and you're trying to get your compression garment on and you can't get that 550 on, you know, it might be an option for you, but just know that it may not contain you as well as the 550 depending on the staging of your lymphedema. So you really need to work with the lymphedema therapist, but there are definitive differences in terms of wall stability and the fact that the Medi 450 has the longitudinal stretch, so it stretches vertically, whereas the 550 does not really have that longitudinal stretch. So it's harder, it's more tough to get on. So if you have that, you know, finger issues, keep that in mind when you're ordering compression, because the higher level compression you order, the harder it's going to be to get on. So you want to use compression and talk to your therapist and doctor about it, but that you can actually get on. Because if you can't get it on, what's the point of having it? There's no point, because you're not going to fight with yourself to put it on every day. So it's better to have something that you can actually get on. It may not contain as well, but it's doing something. It's better than nothing.
I'm going to piggyback to some questions. I'm hoping we can knock some of these out. I'm looking at the number 14 and I'm like, oh, we got to get this thing down. How do you know what's the best fit garments for you? My piece of advice from a patient and I guess expert compression wear is, if you have a little bit of disposable income, it's like test driving a car, or it's like going jeans shopping or shoe shopping. You try a whole bunch before you go, and when you get those shoes or those jeans or those cars. Not all compression manufacturers fit everybody's body the same way. Don't, if you can, and if you don't, what's the word? If you can fit off the shelf, start with a disposable budget and start buying different models, different sizes from different compression companies to see how they fit and how they feel before you go ahead and take it to the next step to custom. Some patients are 100% custom regardless. They may not ever fit in the off-the-shelf sizing, but then you can always go for the Velcro garments to hopefully decongest you to get down to save you some money. But try before you buy. Take some money, throw it out there. I know everyone thinks it's super expensive, but instead of investing long-term into something you have to wear all the time, try them on for yourself, because you might be the tall and slim, you might be short and stout. I don't know if that's the appropriate word. But nonetheless, it really comes down to you and your body type and your needs and what works for you. And like Catherine says, she has something from every company. So do I. I'm pretty sure Angela does. I'm sure Alexa does. I'm pretty sure even Karen does. And she's not even, you don't have lymphedema, I don't think, but I'm sure she has everything under the sun. So again, if you go out shoe shopping, you just don't try one shoe and take it home. Do invest a bit of your funds, try them all out for a size, see how they feel, see what you like or dislike, and then take it to the next level.
And a good fitter will be able to save you some money and help you decide which direction to go with all of that, because there are so many types of compression out there. It is so confusing. But I have a few very amazing fitters that are my go-to because they know way more than I do. And so I am constantly emailing and calling them with questions. And there are certain brands that, you know, are better for taller people and so on. So just keep asking, just keep finding and networking, and you know, talk to other people with lymphedema and find out what they like and what works for them, because it can be very, very confusing. But I think that what happens is that people start to groove in to their favorite repertoire, and a lot of people just have a wardrobe because we have our fat days and our skinny days, and you know, we need different types of compression for different applications. And I do wear compression, by the way, when I fly. I love my textured compression because it is so comfortable. And if I don't wear compression and I fly, I get swelling. So I'm right there with you guys.
One other thing in regards to compression is sometimes you may not know what the options that they describe on the order form are. Don't be afraid to reach out to the company themselves to get an answer, because I actually learned about a new waistband that I got for my compression garment, and oh my God, I will never order a garment without it because it is so comfortable. And I hated the waistbands for the longest time, and now I'm in love with it because they're like, ooh, try this one. This one might make it work better for you. And I'm like, and what if it doesn't work? And they're like, we'll replace it for you with the old one. I said, okay. So I tried it, and I will probably never ever order a garment without it again because it's that comfortable.
I want to note real quick, because we have so many questions. I always keep track of them, and next month, if we don't get to all of these, and I have a feeling we might not, we will address them next month at the beginning of the roundtable. We'll just go through all these. So if your question doesn't get answered, tune in next month or watch the replay after. We will get to it, I promise. And we did get a question over email, actually, that I wanted to bring up real quick to kind of jump the line in the Q&As. But Angie had emailed saying, I suffer from lymphedema in my right arm due to breast cancer in 1995. The surgeon removed 39 lymph nodes, and several months later, my arm was affected. I had rotator cuff surgery on my right shoulder in December 23. My shoulder and arm have been very painful. Can lymphedema be responsible for the pain? I've had cellulitis twice since my surgery and had to be hospitalized during the second bout. I'm hoping to get some feedback on this. And I saw a couple other questions in the Q&A about rotator cuff surgery and knee surgery and stuff. So how does our swelling affect pain, especially in
certainly post-surgical swelling can compound lymphedema. And I want to say that there's probably a lot of things going on, more than just swelling, because there's probably a fair amount of scar tissue and fibrosis as a result of the breast cancer treatment and the rotator cuff surgery. So you definitely want to do everything you can to try to reduce the swelling post-surgically. I've even had patients that have had a risk of lymphedema, and it doesn't show up until after a surgery. So it can really kind of be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So getting with a really good lymphedema therapist who can help you, as well as if you need another therapist who can help rehab from the rotator cuff surgery. I mean, you've got several issues you need to deal with. So, you know, my heart goes out to you. 39 lymph nodes, that is a lot. But there's ways. The body is incredibly versatile. You can reroute swelling to different places. You know, we think of lymph nodes as the drains, and the swelling just needs to find a place to drain. So it might be in the neck, it might be in the lymph nodes around the breastbone or the spine. There might even be the potential to go over to the other set of lymph nodes in the armpit. So don't give up. Keep finding people that can help you and make sure that you get good people to help you. And I noticed that Alexa dropped some information in the chat for referrals. So, I think that's one of our greatest gifts to this whole community, is to encourage you to find the right resources, because it can be really tough if you don't know where they are.
Can I comment on this as well?
Of course.
So, from a patient perspective, I actually had a hip replacement on my lymphedema side. So one of the important things that I did do was, prior to the surgery, I explained about my lymphedema to the doctor and actually convinced him to bring in a lymphedema therapist into the operating room to wrap my leg after the surgery was done. We did it so that they couldn't screw it up if they didn't know how to use the wraps that I provided them with. So I gave them a Velcro wrap. So we kind of it's really hard to necessarily mess up a Velcro wrap, especially when you're just matching colors. So I try to give them the most easy compression. I also made sure to see my lymphedema therapist before having the procedure to try to reduce my current edema levels to the lowest possible that it could be. And once it was cleared by the surgeon, I not only received the rehabilitative therapy that I needed for the hip and also my back when I had that done as well, but I also got lymphedema therapy because it's two different diagnoses, so they can treat both at the same time most places, as long as you get it approved properly.
Good info. Thank you.
There's a question about Velcro wraps thing I just mentioned about Velcro wraps.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are a ton of different brands for Velcro wraps. There are reduction kits. There are just Velcro wraps that maintain. So it really depends on the need to determine what type of Velcro wraps there are. And I want to say that almost every compression company has a type of a Velcro wrap. So you'd have to kind of research and figure out which one is best for you. And just know that it's not always published that you can do this, but you can actually get a customized Velcro wrap. So I've actually customized a couple of different types from different companies. My leg doesn't respond to overlapping of compression very easily, like in certain areas. So instead of having 3 separate pieces, like the calf piece, the knee piece, the thigh piece, I actually had them make the entire Velcro wrap from ankle to groin as one piece. So I didn't have the overlap that, but you have to reach out to the companies to talk to them to figure out what measurements do you need, how do you need them, and how do we go about ordering something like that. So you have to advocate for yourself about what you want and see what they can do to help you get it.
You just brought our whole evening full circle talking about self-advocacy. That's so important, especially when we have a condition that is so misunderstood, underdiagnosed. We really have to be our best advocates. And I have a little share about that actually myself. A couple weeks ago, I had noticed I had these weird red dots all on my lymphedema leg. And I was like, this doesn't look right. So my boyfriend and I went to patient first, and they said, oh, this is probably folliculitis because you had you're shaving or something. You need to change your razor blade. And that's what this is. And I was like, well, I have a lymphatic condition, which puts me at like a much higher risk for infection. And I'm just really concerned about that. And she was like, okay, well, here's like a prescription for an antibiotic just in case. And I waited a couple days and it still wasn't improving. And I felt like this really isn't right. And I was taking pictures, documenting it each day. And then finally, I called my lymphedema clinic and went in and I showed them all my photos and they looked at my leg and they were like, oh, that's cellulitis. That's exactly what that is. And thank God you started antibiotics when you did, or else you would have ended up in the hospital. And I was like, wow, that's the power of speaking up. And when you know something's not right, we know our bodies best and we have to say something. And it's hard to do that sometimes, especially the power dynamic of, a doctor or somebody that you feel like, they're going to think, oh, well, what do you know? Like, I'm the doctor. But sometimes a lot of the time they don't know this like we do. So yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
I just think that's so fascinating because you've been a patient for over 2 decades and you work with Lympha Press. You are immersed in the lymphatic community. So I'm totally going to make you the guinea pig for everybody at home. But just how amazing is that you've been in this disease for over 2 decades? You think you know it all, you think you've seen it all, and then you're still like, what's going on? And like I see Angela nodding her head. She's had experiences. Same with Catherine. I think, whether you're a brand new patient or whether you're a veteran, every day is just a new day in the world of lymphedema or lipedema. And I just think that for people at home watching, that we're really all starting our day over every single day, doing the best that we can. And I just hope that whoever is new or newer, to empathize even with us old veterans, that we still encounter brand new situations. We don't necessarily know it all. Like we feel like we've taken the step to educate ourselves and to do all the right things. But what a fascinating story.
Thank you. I wrote a blog post about it. If you want to
In a
check it
bad
out.
way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I know, because the spots threw me off because I was frantically Googling pictures of cellulitis, and I knew obviously I've seen pictures of it and it's the red rash. And I thought, well, I have dots, I have spots all over my leg. That's not what I'm seeing, but it just didn't feel right. And Catherine, we were texting about it. You're also a spotty gal. You get spots too, right?
I'm a spotty blistery gal.
Blister, yeah.
But one thing I want to point out is that just because like Alexa got spots, I've gotten a blister, everybody's body is going to represent cellulitis very differently. So like sometimes you might wind up with a fever, sometimes you may not. So you kind of have to know what your normal is for your body and just really be in tune. So and sometimes you might not even get the redness, but you get the pain, you get the discomfort, and you can just feel that something is not right. But I am going to say, when cellulitis happens, I will say, and Karen, you can totally agree with me or disagree with me, that 90% of the time it is rapid. Like you feel it and then it just goes. So you have to really make sure that you are in tune. And if you feel that something is not right, I'm going to just say this. Don't post on Facebook, should I go to the emergency room? Just go.
Right.
It is, you're wasting time on posting and waiting for an answer rather than just going to one of those urgent cares or seeking some sort of medical attention.
Yeah.
Not worth wasting time.
Yeah, don't ignore it. Do not ignore it. If it doesn't feel right, get seen by somebody, for sure. We are close to the end of the hour, and as predicted, we did not get to everybody's wonderful questions, so we are definitely going to address them in the April roundtable. I wanted to go through and read some of the responses to the poll. I had put a little poll in the chat that said, what does lymphedema awareness look like to you? So I'm going to read through some of those as we close out. And they don't have your names attached. It's by email, so I apologize. I can't, attribute these to you. So if you hear yours, thank you for submitting. So what does lymphedema awareness look like to you? Early detection and reversal. People will finally understand what we go through, and hopefully insurance companies will start covering all the things we need for daily therapy. Recognizing your problem and finding a cure. Getting to understand more about lymphedema. Awareness is a catalyst for change. What I have learned from these webinars has truly impacted my journey to address my tissues. You might have meant issues, but tissues also is very appropriate because it is our tissues that we are addressing here. To gain as much information as I can as I'm still learning. Someone else said lymphedema awareness is information, understanding rather than blame. Someone said, I like the idea of telling people about lymphedema while I'm wearing my compression stocking to my exercise classes. Up until now, I've been hiding it with my yoga pants. Advocacy with those living with lymphedema and education of the public, supporting those living with lymphedema, posts with pictures or short videos showing what lymphedema and for them lipedema looks like, finding a provider, Someone just said help, education, an answer to what was going on with me. Awareness is about accepting invitations to talk to groups of people about lymphedema and lipedema. In putting together presentations, you solidify your knowledge and seek new info, and in doing the presentation, you remain current in knowledge and educating a whole new group about lymphedema. I believe we have a responsibility to help those yet diagnosed or poorly educated on options. That's great. Thank you everybody for submitting and for being here tonight and for participating in the chat too. MJ said, community, advocacy, sharing, compassion, giving voice. Love that. Fenton in the chat. It's Fenton's birthday month, by the way. So Fenton's probably one of our, he's here pretty much every single month. And if everyone could wish our dear pal Fenton in the chat a happy birthday, by the way, that would be so wonderful because we really appreciate him and his support and his being here. So happy birthday month, Fenton. All right, as mentioned, we are going to be here in April, second Tuesday of the month, as always. And we hope you join us. We're going to get through all of the questions that we missed. The replay will be up on YouTube in probably a week. Fun fact, I edited the last month's roundtable myself, which is why it took so long. But I invite you to check it out because I put some of the chat bubbles in there, tried something a little different. So I'll do that again for this month's roundtable. So if you can't make it live, you can always catch the replay or listen to it on the Lympha Press podcast. It'll be in your email as well once the replay is posted. But we love it when you join us live and talk to us in the chat and ask questions. We're here every second Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we appreciate you all being here. And that in itself is also advocating for yourself and lymphedema awareness. And I want to ask the panel if they have any closing words this Lymphedema Awareness Month.
Yes.
Go, Karen. Oh, yeah, of course. Go, Karen.
So I know you love all of us and you can't get enough of us. And so I want to just make sure that everyone knows that we're going to be doing a very special webinar in another week. It's going to be next Thursday, March 21st. And Alexa can probably throw a link into the chat faster than I can. Oh, there she is. And, travel is one of the biggest, hottest topics, as is cellulitis. And we're going to be talking about both. And we have an all-star panel of experts. And I really want to just encourage everyone to sign up because whether you can attend it live or whether you watch the replay, I guarantee this is going to be some amazing information for you. So please join us.
Please do. Thank you, Karen. I almost forgot to even plug that. All right, everybody, we've got a couple minutes to spare tonight, but we'll let everybody go early to get on with their Lymphedema Awareness Month festivities. But we so appreciate you being here with us tonight. And whether it's your first time or we did the math, the other roundtable, how many roundtables have we had? Like 40 some, Catherine? I don't recall. It's up there.
It's
Fenton.
going to be, it's 3 years, I think.
Maybe, yeah. 3 years.
I think it's 3 years this month. Or no, 3 or 4. I want to say we started in 2020.
It might have been. I know the Lymphedema Roundtable, I think, started 2020. And
So I think we were slightly after that. So it was either 2020 or 2021. So it's either 3 or 4 years. So it's somewhere between 36 and 48.
Somewhere roughly in there. Well, that's awesome. Fenton says, seems like forever. No, just kidding. Love you, gals. And Rosemary says, this is my first time here. Thank you for your positive approach. We're so glad you were able to make it. We had a couple people whose first times were tonight. So we're so happy you found your way to us. And we hope you join us again in April. And yeah, with that, we're going to close out the evening. And all the first timers are chiming in the chat. We're so happy that you all came. And we're happy everybody came. And whether you catch the replay or you just catch a few minutes live or you're here the whole night, we really appreciate it. And we love being here with you all. And we hope you have a great rest of your Lymphedema Awareness Month. A happy St. Patty's Day, as Fenton just reminded us. And we'll see you in the spring in April. All right, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.